Do you agree with my audience there on the Twitter that Bitcoin will outperform equities in the next 6 months?
Brian, I'm very surprised. In fact, I was on your Twitter feed looking at that, and it's possible. I mean, next year is the year after the halving, so crypto and Bitcoin especially usually show some fireworks. But I might also agree with you. I think commodities might be their sleeper because there could be a reflationary setup taking place, and that would be very good for commodities.
Yeah, I didn't put that on there by accident, Tom. There could have been a lot of other fourth choices. By the way, Twitter should expand their polls to more than 4, but I threw that on there because you see with a lot of soft and hard commodities right now, they're starting to accelerate. Cocoa, coffee, and others. But that aside, nobody cares about commodities. Let's get back to the equity markets. From now until the end of the year tends to be a really good time for stocks, but we've already had a really good time the last couple of weeks. What do you think is going to happen, Tom?
We're entering, a strong seasonal period, which starts the Monday before Thanksgiving into year end. In the last 25 years, it's up 90% of the time. And that's excluding bear markets, obviously. But we've got some tailwinds because I think there's, a lot of cash on the sidelines still. I think we have to keep in mind so many investors have been cautious because of all the insanity of 2020. The economy does seem to be sort of finding its footing, which is great news. And I think that next year we get the potential for fiscal stimulus. And there is the typical Santa Claus rally. So I think we're going to finish the year strong. We've had a surprisingly robust market. I don't see any reason why it's going to reverse in the next 2 months. And so I think investors need to be risk on.
Yeah, you just wonder all that stuff you talked about, which is great. The vaccine news, which is the best news of all, the treatment news. You've got, of course, the ability maybe of the stimulus. You probably just heard from Ed Mills on the show. He thinks it will indeed happen. But you wonder how much of that is already baked in. Aren't the markets supposed to be forward-looking discount mechanisms, Tom?
They are. But I think it has to do with positioning, Brian. I think for the last 10 years, investors really got paid to own growth stocks because GDP growth has been underwhelming. And in 2020, growth has really saved most people into 2020. But as you know, vaccine is a binary event that really helps cyclical stocks. And if we get stimulus or an economic recovery, that really helps cyclical stocks. Janet Yellen's a very market-friendly pick that would help cyclical stocks. And so I think that there's a reluctant rotation taking place into what we call epicenter stocks. And that's really turning out to be quite a violent move, but that's what's not priced in because, COVID's pretty unpredictable. So I don't think anyone has been really willing to say 3 months from now what's happening.
Yeah, and listen, going back to COVID, neither of us are experts on it, but we look at the data. I think you and I look at it as much as anybody. I have spreadsheets on this stuff, Tom, just to understand the trends. 3 million people got on a plane in the United States on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Ostensibly, they're all going somewhere. They're all going to have to come back. Cases are on the rise. Thankfully, outcomes in many places have gotten a lot better. That is the most positive news. But there's a lot of questions about all this travel and what it's going to do to cases and potential lockdowns and economic slowdowns because of it. But the market doesn't seem to be paying any attention to that.
Yeah, I think the market's pretty sensitive to that, Brian. So I think everybody is aware that policymakers could end up instituting hard lockdowns, something akin to what happened in Europe. The good news is, of course, if that happens, cases will definitively roll over. But I think the good news so far is, as you said, cases are rising. Soft lockdowns are taking place. People are taking precautions. Even in North Dakota and South Dakota, where COVID was rapidly exploding, essentially, is really slowing down. But you're right. Over the next 6 weeks, families are getting together. People are traveling. I think it's likely the reason why a lot of forecasters think this sort of wave 3 doesn't end until February, because it's rolling over now, but it could resurge with force because of the holiday.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.